Well, here we are, still in day 3, but the second skill we need to learn is how to set up trigonometry ratios. Now, what is a ratio? I know that might be a word that is not something you use every day. So we're going to call a ratio a fraction. And the cool thing about the word ratio is that it is inside the word fraction. So a ratio is just a type of fraction. And actually what I am going to do is I'm going to write the word fraction, but I'm going to include these other letters in red. That way you can see the word ratio jumping out at you. It is just a fraction. So that means it has a numerator and it has a denominator. Now in trig, there are 3 ratios we will use. There's the sine ratio, there's the cosine ratio, and there is the tangent ratio. Now there's actually 6 trig ratios, but in geometry, we only use these 3. And they have abbreviations. Someone decided it would be nicer to abbreviate those. Now, what are these ratios? How do we define them? Well, the sine ratio is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The cosine ratio is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And the tangent side is the opposite over the adjacent. And these are ratios that we have to know. We're going to eventually use these in the next few days to solve for that missing side. But you can see why it's so important that we label our triangles correctly. Because if we don't label our triangles correctly, we're not going to have correct ratios. Now, a good way to remember the ratios is with this silly made up word. And we say SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Now, this word is not in the dictionary. So if you look in your dictionary, you're not going to find it. This word is made up to help us remember that sine, the S, equals opposite over hypotenuse, SOH. So this reminds me of that. S is sine, O is opposite, H is hypotenuse. Ka is cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, and TOA is tangent opposite over adjacent. So it's just a silly made up word to help us remember the ratios.